absolutely.
And so throughout this year, go to our website. We're going to have a calendar of events. We have a river luncheon, first time we've ever done this. It's going to be at the Hyatt Regency Riverfront Hotel downtown. That's going to be a celebration about the 10-year anniversary, but it's also going to be an educational event where we're going to let folks know more about some of the issues facing the river in terms of the efforts to take water out, how water supply, in other words, is affecting the future of the St. Johns River, potentially affecting it. And so we have Cynthia Barnett, who is a wonderful writer for Florida Trend magazine, coming to speak at that event. It's March 3rd, and you can go online. You can register right there online to come to the luncheon.
Yeah,
we have all kinds of free events throughout the year as well. There's the river cleanup in March. Actually, in February next month, there's the Rally for the Rivers, which one of our partners, the
Putnam County Environmental Council.
They sponsor the Rally for the Rivers, and we're going to participate in that.
That's a 3-day event. It's a great opportunity to get out and enjoy not only the St. Johns, the Ocklawaha, all the rivers that we're so blessed to have,
and to learn about them too, because there's a lot of educational opportunities.
Absolutely.
So, and then throughout the year, you're going to see things. And then in April, we have what is one of our most popular events, is our 2-day boat trips that go between Palatka and Sanford, and that's April 8th and 9th, and then April 10th and 11th. So sign up for those. Those things, I think it's going to fill up quick this time. So I hope if you're interested,
I think it is too,
this is probably one of your best chances to experience really what I say is the essence of the St. Johns River.
Absolutely.
And get out on one of the most beautiful stretches of the river too, between Palatka and Sanford. So sign up and get on that boat trip, because it is a wonderful opportunity, and this will be the only ones that we're doing this year, is the ones in the spring. So this is your only chance this year to do the two-day trips. So there's a lot of opportunities, Neil, to celebrate, to get out there and enjoy the river, and we encourage you to do so. Now let's get down to business and talk about some of the issues, because that's what we are as an organization. One of our primary focuses is advocating for the solution of these problems, these issues that are impacting the health of the river, and to actually lead to the restoration. So you mentioned before nutrient pollution, and that is something that, going back 10 years, we've been working on this issue.
Over 10 years, really.
We finally had a major, what I would call, victory. Now it's a victory that will hopefully
carry forward.
But for now, it's a big step forward. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about that, Neil?
Well, I think we mentioned, one of the big problems facing the river is just the problem of too much nitrogen and phosphorus. Nitrogen comes from all of us, our daily lives, wastewater treatment plants, runoff from our parking lots, our businesses, our yards, in spring. That's a huge source of nitrogen. And it's an issue that it really impacts the health of the river. I mentioned earlier the algae bloom. That is just a way for the river to tell all of us, look, I've got some issues. We as an organization have been fighting to reduce the millions of pounds of nitrogen that go into the river. We were one of 5 groups that last fall, or the fall of 2009, we had pushed the EPA to step in. That's the federal agency, Environmental Protection Agency, that oversees the protection of our environment. And we were successful. A federal judge and the EPA agreed that something needed to be done, and they agreed to establish nutrient standards, or how I would describe it, Jimmy, is numeric targets that we can all look at, understand, and begin to reduce those. There has been a lot of publicity from those who use the river to dispose of pollution. Some business groups and paper mills and others who believe or try to convince people, this is money not well spent. It's going to cost billions of dollars. But frankly, what I think our experience, people in this community know, when the river is green, that not only hurts our economy, it hurts our quality of life. And so generally, I think the citizens in this case are out in front of this issue, and we're going to be working to get our members and people who care about the river to support the standards that were just released. Last week, The EPA moved forward on their consent order. They established some standards that are slightly more stringent than what the state had put forth, Jimmy. But I think the real value in this is the EPA is looking at the river now in its entirety and looking at the pollution that's upstream of us and how that impacts us. And they're going to begin a process. It's going to be phased in. It's not going to be next March or in a month from now all this is going to happen. I think history will show this. This is going to be one of the most historic decisions probably made in the history of Florida, because sadly the DEP recently noted 50% of the rivers and streams in this state are impaired, which I always say is just a nice way of saying polluted.
Well, and it's, there's been some misconceptions out there about, like you mentioned, what this is going to mean for us as citizens, financially, economically. I think one of the things that people need to be aware of, though, is that the state had been working on this issue for about 11 years.
Over 11 years.
And had not released any pollution standards and started to implement those standards. And so what happened is a group of citizens groups like Riverkeeper got together and said, you know what, we're going to, if we have to, we're going to sue the EPA, we'll go to federal court, and then we will force the EPA to step in and make this happen. And that's what we did. We reached a settlement. The EPA agreed to step in, come into the state of Florida and set those standards. And then what they're doing is they're using the actual data that's been collected during that 11 years.
I mean, statewide, but locally specifically.
So they're using that data to establish a standard. So this isn't like they came in with their own data and information. This is stuff that we've had accessible to us for a long time. So I think that's very important for people to realize, that this is not just in an arbitrary decision. This was something that needed to happen. It's needed to happen years ago, and it didn't. And so finally, the EPA was forced to step in and take action. And I think it's evident that we needed to do something. Our river last year, as you mentioned, Neil, turned green. And was toxic again. We had health advisories, and that's not a good situation. Another thing too is that, as you mentioned, I think that's important, is these standards are not that much more stringent than what the state had been considering for a long period of time. So in other words, the economic cost is not going to be that much more than what was going to be proposed potentially at some point by the state. So this is, and I also like to tell people, we need to look at this as an investment. Protecting our waterways and our natural resources is good for business. And it's good for our economy in the long run. And that what we're doing is investing in these resources, because they're critical to a healthy economy. If we're going to have a long-term sustainable economy, we're going to have clean and healthy waterways and a healthy environment. And so this is one step forward to doing that. And I think, as you mentioned, a lot of people, citizens, get that. Nobody wants to spend, I mean, in these economic times, nobody wants to spend any more money on anything if we don't have to. But in this case, I think people recognize we have to. It's an investment in our future. And, Jimmy, I think the thing that has been lost in some of this discussion, this community, Northeast Florida, in a year after the big green monster of 2005, I think that kind of caused people to think we've got to do something. Yeah, it was a wake-up call.
And in 2006, a group of people who discharge communities, the city of Jacksonville, agencies, we as a community committed around $700 million in a long-term process to clean up the river. And so when we read about, this could cost statewide over $1 billion, I think we need to do two things. First, as a community, be proud that we already made this commitment. And then most importantly, we as a community need to move forward on that commitment. It's one thing to say we're going to do something. I think these regulations will help focus those dollars in the most cost-effective way to end up with a clean river.
Yeah. So I think, and if you have any questions about this at any time, if you ever see anything in the news that you're concerned about, we're accessible. You know, we are an email away, or you can pick up the phone. I know we're busy, but we'll get back to you as soon as we